Okay, today's video is going to be about what I'm doing with healthcare prior to turning 65 when I go on Medicare. And I got to say, honestly, this was probably um, at this point, after being retired like a year and a quarter, the only mistake I made. I would do it the same way all over again, but the only mistake I made. So what happened was in my original plan, I thought when I turned 55, according to the IRS rule of 55 rule with your 401k, I could draw down from my 401k and start building up cash assets for my to go on the Affordable Care Act when my wife retired because she covers our health insurance right now. What happened was about 6 months prior to retiring, I called up the 401k plan. I said, "Hey, I'm planning on doing this," and they said, "You can't do that." So my plan, the government allows it, but the plan doesn't allow me to take distributions other than 100% distribution out of my 401k. And also, there was an equal payment distribution plan. I didn't want to do that either. I don't even know if my plan would allow it. So that kind of was my issue. So what I want to go through today is what am I doing to handle our healthcare so that my ultimate goal is to bring down the income I have to take from my 401k and things of that nature, basically income that's going to show up on my taxes so that I can bring down that affordable care cost on a monthly basis. As I was watching the healthcare video, it dawned on me that I hadn't really given you an overall outlook of kind of what we're generally budgeting for our healthcare pre and post retirement. So I thought that would be helpful. So I'm injecting this into the pre 65 healthcare video real quick. So you'll see for pre Medicare we have 22,000 a year. That's $11,000 per person per year that we're looking to spend before we get Medicare. After Medicare Part A is paid for, Part B is 6,500 a year. That's both of us. Part D is $1,200 a year. And then I have for out of pocket expenses, whether that's unpaid or co-insurance, that kind of thing, it's 13,000 a year. After 77, I give in addition to these things, I do an additional $3,000 a year for out of pocket stuff that we may encounter. So realize too, because I'm using Right Capital for this, these numbers will be inflated up every single year over my entire plan. So I thought it would be valuable for you in lieu of when you're looking at how I'm trying to get my taxes down and looking at healthcare, that you kind of see the healthcare financial summary. We'll get into some of these details later in another video. So thank you so much for watching. And now back to our regular scheduled programming. So that's what you're seeing on the screen right now. So on the screen right now, and it started out with what if the market's doing really bad and I just want to pull that amount from cash? Because clearly the only place I have to pull it from right now is my cash assets and then my 401k equivalent cash assets. So it started out as an exercise in just saying, do I have enough cash? It ended up being an exercise in, oh my gosh, figuring out taxes and going through and seeing in the future what my income would be and things like that. So I'm going to focus more today on just how much do I need, and pulling it from the different places is the easy part. So let's look at this real quick. Um, so first of all, these are basically my cash assets right now, things that are safe. I'm going to tell you that just because it's up here. I don't use it that much. I got 40,000 in the bank. I got 515,000 in the equivalent of a CD in my 401k. You just saw the video I did. I have 115,000 in a CD, and I have 112,000 in like a government cash account. So that's kind of the profile of what I have. But that's just cash. That started out the exercise because I thought I was going to draw down from them. I'm just explaining it because it's on here. Up on the right here is the government tax brackets. So what my ultimate goal, what I'm trying to do in this exercise is say, hey, in 3 years, when I need the Affordable Care Act, what tax brackets am I sitting in? Where can I pull from the money, and how much money can I pull so I have it in cash? It's not going to be cash. I'm probably going to stick it in a brokerage account or something like that, something that doesn't get counted towards ACA. That'll be the least of my worries, to be honest with you. Like I said, that's probably the one mistake I made. I don't know if I mentioned this already. I'll mention it again because it's worth mentioning. Is when I retired, I had about 200,000 in cash, and I need pieces of that money to, to offset me not working. And my wife's still working and she provides the healthcare. So, so I thought in my head, oh, that would be enough, but I was so burned out I couldn't wait any longer. So it turns out it's not really quite enough because I didn't realize how much we were going to be drawing down and what tax bracket that was going to put us in. So let's just kind of look. Let's go first. What you're thinking, maybe what you're thinking is, well, where do you go to get the healthcare numbers? So for New Jersey, you go to this Get Covered New Jersey and you hit shop and compare plans. You put in whoever you're covering, you and your wife, and then you put in the income that you make. So what I did is I did that. It's pretty straightforward. There's nothing crazy about it. Is when you do that, oh, I have this on rolling. You'll see what you get is it asks you to put in how much money you're going to make. And you do this at the beginning of the year when you go for health insurance. And at the end of the year, while you're doing your taxes, they when you get your credit, they double check, were you right? And if you're not right, then you owe them money. So I tried to compare like the same three plans with different amounts. So if I make 100,000, which is what I was originally, I could get down to 90. I don't think I'm gonna be able to do that. So at 100,000, and we're not going to get into the individual plans. I'll get into that on another video. Right now, I have about 20,000 a year set aside when my wife retires to take care of health insurance. I think it'll be enough, but we'll see. So you'll see that this silver EPO is $746 a month. There's different types of plans. We're not going to get into all that. I just picked one as a benchmark that I thought was realistic. You'll see that if I do 100,000, if our family makes 100,000 married filing jointly, then it's $746 a month. If we make 90,000, it's $675 a month. So I'm just trying to kind of, or no, oh yeah, it's scrolling. That's right. So IPO silver, or no, wait, did I put them in the wrong? It's all right. Oh no, let's look at this one. This is better. So it's $884 a month for this United Healthcare plan. And then with 100,000, with 90,000, it's $813 a month. So that's kind of the round number. And in my head, I got 20,000 a year planned. So that's, give or take 1,000 a month, but I want to be able to cover dental and I want to be able to cover some kind of basic optical plan too. So the goal is to get me down to one of these two numbers for planning. I don't think it's realistic after going through this to go any lower than that because I didn't realize it. So what was my first step in that? My first step in that, and that's what you're going to see here, is to map out our ages, what year it was. You'll see why I use it in a minute, what my wife's age, what my age is. Now, she's covering for these 3 years, she's going to retire at 63. So for these 3 years, we don't need health insurance, okay? So basically, if you look at the window that I have to store cash, it's these 3 years, when I'm 60, 61, and 62. So those are the 3 years that I have to stash away enough cash so that I can draw, or cash equivalent, so that I can draw from that when we start collecting insurance, right? When we need health insurance. Okay, so that would mean these years, my gosh, it's just been raining constantly this week. I feel like I live in Europe. So the years that I need it for are before she turned 65. So I only need it for a couple years here and I turned 65 later. So just for to err on the higher side instead of the lower side, I've got these 1, 2, 3, 4 years to essentially cover, right? Where my wife won't be working. We won't have health insurance. So we got to get it. So my first step is I got to figure out during those 4 years, how much money will I be making based on our retirement plan? And this is where you need to have a plan. I don't know how you do this without software. So what I did was I took these years. That's why I have a year column, 2028. I went into Right Capital under tax estimate. You go to details and you can actually pull up based on what you put in the system all the years. So the thing that's important with ACA, Affordable Care Act, is with healthcare, it doesn't use your taxable income. It uses your adjusted gross income. So when I first started doing this, I was looking at taxable income. I'm like, oh, I can get it below 90, no problem. And then as I was reading more details, I went, oh no, I have to get it below my adjusted gross income, which which is 132,000 for 2028 based on, all the expenses I put in and things we're going to pay for. So what I did next, obviously I did all 3 years. So my ultimate goal is to take those years and get them down to roughly 100,000. So that if I get it down to 100,000 on that line, then I could qualify for the Affordable Care Act. I mean, I'll qualify no matter what, but it's just about how much subsidies we get. Assuming it's still there, but I have to assume that. I mean, that's just how it is. Okay, so how did I do that? And there was a lot more work that went into this than what you're saying, and because I need some of this information more than you do. So let's look at. I had to figure out how much cash based on two things, right? The amount of cash I'm going to have at the end of these next couple years, of which I'm still taking. I have to take like 40,000 a year out of my cash accounts to supplement Beth's income so we can live how we live. And I need to take enough out so that I can bring my income over these 4 years down to like 100,000. So I got to bring it from 125 to 100, 186 to 106, 187 to 107, 179 to 104. So that was the tricky part. I need to figure out how much I need to pull out during these 2 years, which are going to be pretty brutal. And we'll talk about that in a second. So after doing the numbers, and I won't get into it with you because a lot of it was just like, okay, what if I take this much or if I take this much, and getting it to the numbers that I needed. But what ended up happening was, so I figured and that's what you see in the orange, if I took out 75,000 next year, if I took out 75,000 each year. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go into my 401k. I'm going to do a distribution for 75,000. That's going to bump up my taxable income from 50,000 to 125,000, right? Unfortunately, it's going to put me in the next tax bracket up here, but that's okay. For 25,000, I'm going to pay some extra. It's okay because I'm going to pay that tax bracket anyhow when that number appears later. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take that out, and then that's going to give me 150,000 from those withdrawals. I have 160,000 right now sitting in accounts. I've already covered this year. So 2025, I've already covered. So what's going to happen is that's going to give me 160,000 going into 2026. I'm going to take 40,000 out of that. That's going to put me at 120,000. I'm going to take 40,000 out of that, and that's going to leave me with 80,000 there at the end. That first year that I need to start covering health insurance when my wife is 63. Okay, so what sources do I have after that? And making sure it's enough. I have $30,000 in a Roth. That doesn't count towards an ACA, and I can take it out because I'm going to be past 59 and a half, and it's been in there for at least 5 years. Let's add these up. I'm going to have 80,000 cash available, and I'm going to have 150,000 that I had taken out and put in an IRA just explicitly for this purpose. So I have a total of 260,000. So I have $260,000 that I'm going to be able to use that's not going to show up on ACA. So what does that mean? And like I said, put in the feedback. If you see any flaws at this, put it in the feedback. That's kind of what I'm doing here. I'm telling you what to do. I'm crowdsourcing as well as just giving you some ideas to think about. So what I did is I just started putting in some numbers. I tried to do this with an Excel spreadsheet formula and just got to be a pain because I don't need as much this year because my wife will be working half the year. So if you look, this is the cash withdrawal that I'm going to be making out of that 260 to use to fund my retirement. So I'll be spending that money so I don't have to take it down from my 401k. Which again, biggest mistake. I had 200,000 in cash when I retired. I thought that was enough. Not enough. Apparently I needed more. But you guys can think through this if it's before 65, if you're retiring before 65. So if you add this up, just to double check, you'll see down here, it's 260,000. So next, what I said was, then what does that do to my line 11 on my taxes, which is what ACA uses? So, and these, remember, I got all these from my capital. If you don't have a plan, you're just guessing. So you'll see what I did is based on these numbers that I put in here. And obviously when I put numbers in, I kind of had a general idea what it was going to land on. And I was able to get all of these down in that 100, 106 range to get me back to my plan, which is the plan you saw when I went to the ACA, which, by the way, this ACA, right here. It's for New Jersey only. So if you're in a different state, you'll go somewhere else. You may even go to just the regular government page. I think the reason we go to New Jersey is because New Jersey also gives a supplement because, as you're all finding out, it costs a fortune to live in New Jersey, mainly property taxes. Okay, so let's go back here. Now, my next thought with that was, well, and I was going to figure this out, and then it just hit me. I don't think it's worth it. My next thought was, I'm going to save a lot of money because I also put this money in like without doing these subsidies or without me putting this money away and reducing my income by 80,000, it was going to cost like another $1,000 more a month. So what I probably could do, but I don't think it's worth it, is this 75,000, it was going to get taxed no matter what. And you can see I'm in a high tax bracket. So I'm going to be in a high tax bracket anyhow because I'm making 186,000. So I'm already going to be in the 22%. Well, no, I may not be in the 22%. Well, let's look. Let's look real quick. So let's look at, in other words, there's ACA and then there's what you actually get taxed on because after, after your standard deduction, all that good stuff. So let's see where I land. So if I take year 2029, sorry, I know you guys are awesome when you stick through this. This is probably where people start shutting down. And I look at what is my actual taxable income. So here's my standard deduction right here, right? So add lines 12.3, blah, blah, blah. Subtract, and there's my tax rate. Where is it? Okay, here's my taxable income. So my taxable income during that year would be 147,000. So if we go back here, 147,000 is still a 22% tax bracket, even with my standard deduction. So all that means to me is even though I'm pushing myself up into the 22% zone in 2026, it doesn't matter because that 75,000 would have been taxed in 2030. It still would have been taxed at 22%. So all that means is that I'm getting taxed 22% no matter what, whether it's in 2030 or 2026. I mean, assuming the tax brackets stay the same. Um, so so for me, I said, you know what? There's real no reason not to bring that money down. Is it going to be painful? Absolutely, because you know that to get that 75,000, I'm going to have to pull out like 100,000. So that is not going to be a lot of fun taking 100,000 out and only seeing 25,000 of it. But that's just life in the fast lane. So if you have any thoughts, any questions you find in this, um, let me know. My ultimate intent, this is why I do the barbell strategy, is to take this. If the market's doing really well, I'll probably take it out of my S&P 500. Um, if one of these years the market's not doing real well, I'll take it out of one of my equivalent of cash 401ks, like the annuity, or I won't take it out of the Roth, obviously, because that's post tax anyway. So I'm just going to use my barbell strategy when these years hit to decide where do I take that money from. Market doing well, take it from there. Market not doing so well, take it from my cash accounts, my cash equivalents in my 401k. Okay, so I see I have like 8 minutes left to keep into my time range. If you have any comments, any questions, put them in the comments. Remember, this is just advice, not advice. This is just what I'm doing. I'm just I'm just telling you what I'm doing. My hope is that by seeing this, you're going to see two things out of this. One, you should think about this before retiring, unless you're going to retire at 65, and then I guess it doesn't matter that much. But anyone pre-65 should be trying to do these numbers and figure out how much you're going to need. The second thing is, I don't know how in the world you're going to get these numbers with the tax brackets and everything, not just the tax brackets, but how much you're going to spend in those years in the future without having right capital. So I highly suggest you get right capital, you get it accurate, you get it filled in. I know it's hard work, but it's worth it. And it also helps you once you retire as well. So put the time in. It's worth it. Also, remember in my description, I put all the core videos because there's a lot of videos in here. This will be one of the core videos, but there's a lot of videos that are just like informational. And then there's a set of videos I consider core that you should use, how to put software in, how to put your budget in, how to put in your projected income, all that good stuff. So thanks so much for listening to me. I appreciate it. I can't believe I'm going to say this. Subscribe and have a great day. Take care. Bye.